So, picture this. It's pre-dawn, right?
Okay.
The sky is still that really deep, almost ink-spilled black, and the lights are just starting to come on like one quiet switch at a time.
Right, yeah. Not a dramatic theatrical reveal at all. Just, the slow, deliberate start to a day.
Exactly. And there's this small lamp glowing over this beautifully worn old wooden desk.
Oh, I love that aesthetic.
Me too.
Yeah.
And the coffee is just starting to brew, like you can almost smell it. And over in the corner, there's a vintage radio humming softly, as its vacuum tubes warm up.
It's a very specific, comforting atmosphere.
It really is. Outside the window, Commercial Street in Atchison, Kansas is completely still. Storefronts are dark. Maybe like a single delivery truck rumbles by, but otherwise it's just quiet.
Yeah, it evokes a place where someone would actually want to, pull up a chair and just exist for a while.
For sure. And for today's deep dive, that is the exact atmosphere we are adopting. We're stepping inside the little station on Commercial Street.
But we should probably unpack this right out of the gate because there is a catch.
A pretty big catch, yeah. Because if you were to drive down to Atchison, Kansas today and, walk along Commercial Street looking for a brick building with a glowing radio tower.
And like a guy in a booth adjusting dials and all that.
Right. You wouldn't find it.
Yeah. In the strict FCC-licensed physical real estate sense of the word, this radio station does not exist.
It is an entirely digital, imaginary space, and yet this station has a massive, highly dedicated congregation of very real listeners tuning in from all over the globe.
Which is just fascinating.
It totally is. We're pulling from a truly beautiful source published by Chesterton Radio today titled, Keeping the Little Station on Commercial Street on the Air.
Yeah, and our mission today is to figure out why small cultural institutions like this matter so deeply.
Right, like in a world where we are hyper-connected digitally, we really need to understand why people are longing for spaces that actually feel like a physical home.
Exactly. We also need to examine the mechanics of preserving these things. Old stories, daily faith, meticulous craftsmanship.
Because the argument here is that this isn't merely a hobby, right?
Right. It operates as a profound, foundational act of building civilization.
So to understand the weight of that, I think we have to look at how this imaginary station accidentally became a community in the first place.
Yeah, because it didn't start out as this grand vision of a digital homestead.
Not at all. It began simply as a YouTube channel posting old-time radio shows. The creator just had like an affinity for the crackling broadcasts of the past.
Which a lot of people do, sure.
But then the comment section started shifting. It wasn't just people leaving standard internet feedback. Listeners started sharing these deeply personal, multi-generational memories.
Oh, wow. Like what?
They talked about hearing Jack Benny or Gunsmoke in the back of their parents' station wagon, on family vacations.
Oh, I love that. And others were detailing how they were introducing classic thriller shows like Suspense to their own grandchildren.
Right.
Effectively passing down a cultural artifact.
People were even confessing that they used these old broadcasts to fall asleep every night because it just made the world feel, gentler.
Gentler, that's a great word for it. The channel stopped being a digital filing cabinet for old audio and organically transitioned into a gathering place.
And that's a huge distinction. An archive is simply where you go to retrieve information. A gathering place is where you go to be with others.
Yeah, that transition reveals something so crucial about human nature in the digital age.
Sure it does.
But let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay, go for it.
We live in a modern landscape dominated by, VR headsets, 4K streaming, and algorithms feeding us an endless, hyper-stimulating buffet of content.
The endless buffet.
Right. So isn't this obsession with old, crackling radio just pure nostalgia? I struggle to see why modern, technologically adapted people are getting hooked on 80-year-old audio purely for the sake of it. I completely get why you'd ask that. But writing it off as just nostalgia actually misses the actual cognitive mechanics of how this medium works on the human brain.
Really? How so?
Well, we are constantly told that visual spectacle is the pinnacle of immersion, right?
Sure, like IMAX and virtual reality.
Exactly. But audio-only formats engage the mind in a far more demanding and ultimately rewarding way.
The analogy that comes to mind is reading a book with a flashlight under the covers when you were a kid.
Yes. That's exactly it.
It's not a movie doing all the visual work for you. With radio, your brain has to do half the lifting.
And consider the neuroscience behind that. When you listen to a well-crafted audio drama, your visual cortex still lights up.
Wait, really? Even without a scream?
Yeah. The tech world today spends billions trying to build headsets to trick our senses into feeling immersed. But old-time radio mastered immersive media decades ago.
Not through spectacle, but through craftsmanship.
Exactly. A sound engineer in the 1940s knew they didn't need to, digitally render a visual castle. They just needed the sound of a single, heavy, creaking wooden door.
And the moment that sound hits the ear, the listener's imagination instantly constructs the stone walls, the torches, the cold draft.
And importantly, your castle looks different from my castle.
Oh, that's a great point.
Right. Because our brains are pulling from our own unique memory banks to build the scene. Classic radio treated the audience as intelligent, active participants.
That invitation to co-create the story in your mind is exactly why it still resonates so deeply. It doesn't just wash over you.
No, it demands your partnership.
And that idea of the listener doing the heavy lifting of actively participating in the wonder of the story is exactly why they named the station after G.K. Chesterton.
Ah, yes. G.K. Chesterton.
Considering his entire ethos was rooted in the idea that ordinary things are actually extraordinary, a medium that turns a simple sound effect into a sprawling castle is just, the perfect vehicle for his philosophy.
It really is. Chesterton famously believed that imagination wasn't a way to escape from reality, but the primary tool needed to actually discover it.
Right. And he argued that gratitude is a much more revolutionary act than cynicism.
Which is so relevant today.
Yeah.
When you take those principles, respecting the ordinary, choosing gratitude, valuing imagination, you perfectly describe the ethos of the best classic radio.
Totally. And we can see that philosophy applied directly to their programming. Let's walk through the quote-unquote rooms of this imaginary station.
Let's do it.
So imagine opening the front door of the little station on Commercial Street. The very first room you step into is the morning prayer room.
And this serves as the structural foundation for everything else they broadcast.
Right. They use a worn, traditional Douay-Rheims Bible, this historic, highly poetic English translation, and the morning begins with scripture, the Psalms, and the prayers of the church.
But this specific broadcast is not designed to entertain.
No, not at all. It's designed to orient. It happens before you check the stock market, before you look at the political headlines, and way before the algorithm gets its hooks into your day.
It establishes a true north, before the manufactured urgency of the modern world begins screaming for your attention.
I love that phrase, manufactured urgency, because then, walking down the hall, you find the deep dive room.
Oh, this room is fascinating.
Yeah, this is where the day's gospel gets something that modern life almost never allows. A full hour of thoughtful conversation.
An entire hour.
Yeah. They're exploring Benedictine spirituality, this ancient monastic tradition focused on finding a rhythm between deep contemplative prayer and ordinary daily manual labor.
And they weave that together with history, philosophy, and just the peculiar joys of ordinary life.
Offering an unhurried hour to contemplate how ancient monastic rhythms apply to modern daily life is like an incredible luxury in today's media landscape.
It really is rare.
But then you turn another corner and you're in the fiction hallways, and it is completely wild in here.
It's quite the shift in tone.
Seriously. You've got Father Brown Chesterton's famous priest detective quietly solving murders, but he doesn't use forensic science or microscopic blood spatter.
Right. He solves crimes by deeply understanding the spiritual and psychological flaws of the human heart.
Which is brilliant. And right next door to that, you've got classic runs of secular thriller shows like Escape or Lux Radio Theater or One Man's Family.
Blending the deeply sacred with the supposedly secular is a hallmark of Chesterton's embrace of paradox.
It feels like a bustling, entirely eccentric boarding house. Like you walk into the dining room for breakfast and there's a monastic scholar, a philosopher, and a hard-boiled 1940s private eye all sitting at the table, passing the syrup.
That's a hilarious image, but it's so true. Modern life constantly tries to fragment us into highly optimized silos.
Oh, for sure. We have our spiritual app, our news app, our entertainment app.
Exactly. So bringing all of these elements, scripture, philosophy, classic drama, mystery into one single community is a radically integrative act.
It really makes the bold claim that the person who needs to pray the Psalms in the morning is the exact same person who enjoys a gritty Gunsmoke episode in the evening.
Because human nature hasn't changed. And orienting all those parts of the soul in one welcoming place is a really powerful remedy to that modern fragmentation.
So they've built this amazing integrated house, but they aren't just sitting around playing old 1947 tapes on a continuous loop.
No, not at all. There is a massive amount of invisible labor happening behind the scenes to keep this going.
Yeah, the listener merely hears a clean, hour-long broadcast. They are entirely separated from the sheer mechanical effort required to produce it.
Let's be honest about what that invisible labor actually looks like, too, because it's not romantic.
It's really not. It's painstakingly scrubbing hisses and pops out of a degraded digital file for 6 hours.
It's tracking down rare recordings, correcting the metadata, and researching cast members who have been dead for decades just so they get proper credit on a modern screen.
Literally hundreds of quiet, unglamorous decisions are made just so someone can listen to 60 minutes of beautiful audio.
It's less like an iceberg, where things are simply hidden underwater, and more like a mechanical watch.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
The listener just sees the hands gliding smoothly on the face, completely unaware of the hundreds of tiny, frictionless gears grinding away in the dark to make that graceful movement possible.
And there is a temptation today to believe that progress always means replacing the old with the new.
But true progress often means remembering. And it takes immense mechanical work to remember properly.
They aren't only remembering, though. There's a brilliant philosophical distinction in the essay. Museums preserve, living cultures create.
Yeah, it's the difference between a taxidermy animal and a living forest.
Exactly. Preservation is vital, but if an institution only preserves, it eventually becomes a museum of a dead culture.
Which is why Chesterton Radio produces entirely new, original Father Brown mysteries, new essays, and new daily reflections.
Right. They aren't trying to roleplay that it's 1947. They are actively carrying forward the craftsmanship of that era into today's context.
Because tradition isn't just inheriting a historic house and locking the doors to keep the dust out.
No. Every generation receives an inheritance, but every generation must also add a new room onto that house.
Yeah. They have to contribute their own living art to the tradition, or the tradition dies of stagnation.
But building a new room onto a house, even a digital one, requires resources.
Oh, always. It takes time, equipment, server space, talent.
Which introduces the great modern dilemma. How do you fund a station like this without destroying the very atmosphere you just spent years carefully cultivating?
This is the trap that catches almost every digital media project eventually.
Yeah.
The inevitable pivot to standard advertising.
Ugh, yes. And the absurdity of traditional ads in a space like this is genuinely funny to think about, but also kind of tragic.
Totally tragic.
Imagine you've just listened to a profoundly moving, quiet reading of the morning gospel. You're feeling centered, reflective, at peace. Suddenly, a blaring siren goes off, and a guy starts screaming at top volume about 0% financing on discount mattresses for a holiday blowout sale.
It ruins everything. Consider the cognitive dissonance of that transition. Standard advertising relies on inducing a state of manufactured anxiety or urgency. You know, you lack this mattress, you must buy it now to be happy.
Right. And that directly short-circuits the state of contemplative rest the station just spent an hour building.
It literally causes a neurochemical clash in the brain.
Yeah.
It replaces the slow build of serotonin with a sudden spike of cortisol.
But here's the thing they realize about Commercial Street. The imaginary street the station sits on is literally named after commerce.
Right, they aren't anti-business.
Right.
Atmosphere matters, silence matters, reverence matters. But honest trade builds healthy communities.
Exactly. The distinction they draw is essential for modern media. Commerce should be a guest, not the host.
I love that. Commerce as a guest.
Yeah. And practicing commerce as guest means shifting away from the standard advertising model entirely. They've moved towards something much older.
Patronage and sponsorship.
Right. They invite founding sponsors to underwrite specific programs. They do it by making the program possible, not by interrupting it with a sales pitch.
So imagine a Catholic university helping to support the morning prayer broadcast, or a family-owned manufacturing company sponsoring a season of Father Brown.
Or a skilled trades company underwriting educational deep dives, simply because they value the idea of craftsmanship in all forms.
They even have families sponsoring a week of broadcasts in memory of a grandparent who loved old radio.
Which is so special. It's an entirely different relationship than buying eyeballs or eardrums. It's stewardship.
It's an organization or a family standing up and saying, we believe this beautiful thing should exist in the world, and we're going to help carry the weight of it.
That exact spirit reminds me of the cathedral builders of the medieval era.
Oh, absolutely. Craftsmen would spend years carving incredibly intricate, beautiful wooden figures high up inside the dark roofs of cathedrals.
Places where basically no human being would ever see them from the floor.
Right. They carved them anyway, because the excellence was offered first to God. It wasn't about the metrics, the reach, or the impressions.
And that exact spirit is required to build something lasting today. The audio restorer scrubbing hiss out of a tape, the writer drafting a new mystery, the sponsor quietly footing the bill, they're all cathedral builders.
Because institutions aren't created by one solitary visionary with a microphone.
No, they're built by thousands of people making a quiet collective decision that something is worth keeping alive.
And this forward-looking mindset is really crucial when we look ahead to, say, 2036.
Yeah, if this community of builders and patrons succeeds, the vision for this imaginary station a decade from now is expansive but deeply rooted.
What are they hoping for?
Well, they're building a vast library of liturgical reflections spanning years. They are organizing young apprentices to be taught the lost art of audio restoration, so those specific mechanical skills don't just die out with the older generation.
That is so important.
Right. And they envision annual listener gatherings happening in the real Atchison, Kansas. And they hope that maybe by 2036, there will be a real physical studio on Commercial Street.
Oh, wow. A physical space.
Yeah. A place where visitors who have been listening for years can finally walk through the front door, sit down at the desk in front of those microphones, have a cup of coffee, and just smile, finally seeing the place they've imagined for so long.
That perfectly encapsulates their station motto, which, by the way, functions as a Chestertonian paradox itself. The open door is always on.
Right, because doors are usually open or closed, radios are usually on or off.
But Chesterton Radio is aiming to be both simultaneously. A broadcast reaching out into the world and a welcoming room waiting for people to step inside.
Regardless of your background, your denomination, your age, or what country you are in, if you want good company and a reminder that wonder is still possible in a cynical age, the door is open.
It provides a really stark contrast to what we typically expect from digital media.
It really does. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a concept that makes the work of this little station even more vital.
Okay.
In the tech world, there is a phenomenon known as link rot, or digital rot.
Oh, yeah. That is the terrifying reality that the early internet is slowly disappearing.
Exactly. Websites go down, servers are wiped, platforms pivot, and millions of articles, videos, and pieces of art simply vanish into the digital ether permanently.
We think of the internet as forever, but it's actually incredibly fragile.
Compare that fragility to a physical reel of magnetic tape from 1947 that can still be played today, or a cathedral carving that has lasted for centuries.
It's a huge contrast. By meticulously restoring these old audio files, anchoring them to timeless philosophy, and funding them through dedicated patronage rather than fleeting ad algorithms, the community at the little station on Commercial Street is actively fighting back against digital rot.
They are proving that you can use modern digital tools to build something permanent, something that defies the disposable nature of the modern web.
It makes you wonder about the people who will be listening 10 years from now. I imagine them, years in the future, still gathering each morning in the quiet dark before the world wakes up.
Not because a massive corporation engineered an algorithm to keep them there.
No, but because a community of listeners, patrons, and sponsors believed a permanent digital home was worth building.
So for you listening right now, think about what cultural institutions, local places, or timeless stories you are quietly helping to build or preserve in your own life.
It's a question worth asking.
It really is. And so as the day ends, we can imagine the last program signing off, the microphones falling silent, the coffee pot is empty.
The lights are switched off one by one, and the front door on Commercial Street is locked for the evening.
Outside, the street grows quiet again. But tomorrow, before sunrise, someone will unlock that door. The lights will come on. The Bible will open. From the little station on Commercial Street in Atchison, Kansas, good night. And remember, the open door is always on.